Don't forget, you can reach the latest episode of Potomac Watch anytime. Just ask your smart speaker, play the Opinion Potomac Watch podcast. That is, play the Opinion Potomac Watch podcast.
From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
Welcome back. I'm Paul Gigot here on Potomac Watch with my colleagues Alicia Finley, Kim Strassel, and Kyle Peterson. Let's turn, Kim, to the votes in Congress, the results for congressional races in the Senate first. Gain of at least 3, maybe 4 in the Senate. It looks to me like the Republicans are narrowly trailing now in Nevada, Michigan, and Wisconsin, and it's going to be tough for them to prevail in those states. I guess the Nevada, Sam Brown is still narrowly ahead, but there's a lot of vote probably in Clark County that hasn't come out yet, which could turn that race against him. Dave McCormick in Pennsylvania could hold on against Bob Casey. That's a better gain than I think we were hearing earlier in the week. I mean, on Monday, people were expecting. What lessons there?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, can I just note, too, that it's extremely hard to knock off Senate incumbents, whether they're Republicans or Democrats. You really have to mess things up.
Right.
And so what happened on Tuesday night was they knocked off Sherrod Brown, a longtime incumbent in Ohio, a longtime incumbent in Montana, John Tester. If McCormick prevails in Pennsylvania, I mean, Bob Casey has been in politics there since the 1990s. This would be quite the moment. And what you saw in all of these races, and they also played in Wisconsin and Michigan and Nevada, were the incumbents there were tied to their voting records. And what a lot of them had done is in these states that are purple or red, they had one persona when they were home. Hey, I'm a pragmatist. I'm a centrist. You know, I represent your views and I'm there to stop the crazies. And then they would go to Washington and vote the progressive line. And they got hammered by that. And there was no running away from those votes. So that's one explanation for what happened. I think some of these candidates certainly did benefit from Trump's performance in their state. You know, sometimes we see more ticket splitting than we did. He did well enough in enough of these places that they could discount some of that ticket splitting and still look like they were across the line. That might not be the case in Wisconsin and Michigan. And in Nevada, again, we've got to see how those hold out. In terms of those races, it is going to be tough sledding. The closest one is actually Michigan, where they're behind. I think Nevada may end up close. You are right, Paul. Nevada is still sorting through a very big dropped off mail vote that happened yesterday. And a lot of that will come from blue Clark County. So that could make tough sledding. Final note on this is the reason Republicans ended up with the numbers that they did as well is because their incumbents all survived an onslaught of money from Chuck Schumer to try to knock them off, most notably Ted Cruz in Texas and Rick Scott in Florida, both of whom won by double digits in the end. And even that surprise race in Nebraska, Deb Fischer ended up winning in her race as well, too.
Yeah, that investment that Schumer made in Texas, that's $100 million that Chuck will never get back against Texas that he invested in trying to take
Can we add that to what they put in with Beto O'Rourke, too? Are we in billion-dollar territory yet?
Well, there are a lot of Democratic billionaires, so they can afford it. So we're taping this at noon on Wednesday, Alicia, and it looks like the reporting is now coming out that as the races in the House move closer to being decided, that the word is Republicans look like they'll keep the House. Not with a lot of seats, but still a relatively narrow majority, which of course makes all the difference because it means that Trump would not have to deal with Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic speaker.
I think that's right. Especially this is important for extending the tax reform. As I said, there are still a lot of races out, but it looks like Democrats may have picked up 2 or 3 in New York, and Republicans looked like they picked up 1 in Michigan, an important one. That was the open race for Slotkin's seat. That's right, in Lansing. And in California, right now, Ken Calvert, who's a Republican, is trailing in one of the districts, Inland Empire, but Republicans are leading in others and are actually ahead in one of the Orange County races to pick up the Katie Porter seat. So they may pick up 1 there. But it may look at the end of the day be a wash. And again, as you say, this is important for advancing the Republican agenda. And I think most importantly, what will happen is you're going to get a lot of Congressional Review Act resolutions to try to overturn some Biden rules, which will make it a lot easier so that the Trump regulators don't have to go through a laborious administrative process to do that.
A couple of Pennsylvania seats that held by Democrats look like Republicans have a good chance at picking those up as well. And then the Alaska seat that was held by a Democrat could go towards the Republicans. It's fascinating to look at the market reaction, Kyle, to all of this. I mean, this is real money, okay? They're playing with real money here. People are making bets. The Dow is up 3.2% as we speak from the day. The NASDAQ 2.4%. The Russell 2000 is also basically boomed. The Russell 2000 is small cap stocks. Those are the companies that are most affected by regulation. And to Alicia's point about the Congressional Review Act, the market is basically saying here, now this could change, but they're basically saying, we like this result because we think it's going to mean more growth.
Sure, the deregulation that Trump did in his first term, that is one of the things that many Republicans were most enthused about. And you have to also consider the alternative. Kamala Harris promised not only to do more re-regulation, but also to raise taxes by something like $5 trillion, including on capital gains. Donald Trump wants to go the other direction. He sometimes talks about lowering the corporate income tax to 15% to make the United States a more competitive place to do business. The real question in my mind, if we do get a Republican House as well as a Republican Senate and Trump back in the White House, is what those kinds of negotiations between the party are going to look like. Because on the campaign trail, Trump has promised all sorts of things. If you add up the promises, there are more promises than there is money to go around, including the tax-free tips, tax-free Social Security benefits, tax-free overtime. And it will be fascinating to watch as the balance of power in the House and the White House, Trump's advisors, hash out what they actually want to try to put in a bill.
But the key point, Kyle, on taxes is there won't be a big tax increase. That's the key point from the market's point of view, at least in my opinion. All right, we're going to leave it there for today. There's still enormous amounts of investigation, digging into the numbers and the consequences of this momentous election on Tuesday, and also the reaction to it, which is highly amusing in some quarters as Democrats and the press corps adjust to another Trump victory. We will be back every day this week to talk about those consequences. I want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank Kim, Alicia, and Kyle. We'll be back for more fun later in the week. Thanks for listening.